Well, hi everyone. It's wonderful to be with you. I've been looking forward to this for a while. This truly is a Catholic group, isn't it? Like, there's nobody in the front row. I had a nun that I used to, well, I just went to catechism, and whenever this would happen, she'd take the back row and she'd make the back row the front row. So I'm really happy to be with you. We have 3 sessions together tonight and then 2 tomorrow. This really is my favorite topic. I don't get to talk about parish pastoral councils very often anymore, though it had been my first ministry. I began that ministry in the Diocese of Wheeling-Charleston, not too far away from here in West Virginia, working in Parkersburg. That's where I really got to know parish pastoral councils, the Diocese of Greensburg, Pennsylvania. And then went on to Philadelphia and then to the Diocese of Brooklyn, where I was asked by the Bishop of Brooklyn to form parish pastoral councils in the 219 parishes within that diocese within 6 months. He gave me 6 months. And we did it. We actually accomplished it. So it really is my first love. And when Synodality came around, I was teaching at Fordham. I had moved on to other things in my career. And I said, I can't not be a part of this. I said, this is the Olympics of my sport. I have to go. So I really felt this call to basically drop my whole life. I gave up my professorship and my job and my apartment in the park in New York and put a bag on my back and went to Rome. And I went to the front door of the Synod of Bishops and I knocked on the door and I said, hi, I'm here to help. And that became my year in Rome. Where I had the fortunate opportunity to be at both sessions of the Synod and just watch it all happen. Father Michael Higgins was there with me for part of it. And the second time we brought 140 students from 15 universities around the country right into the Synod Hall to meet all the organizers. And it was really a great honor to facilitate that process. So this is really my first opportunity to come and be with a group here in the United States and talk about what that process is and how it can make a difference in parish life. I'm a practical theologian, so I'm going to talk about theology, but for me it needs to be practical. It has to make sense. It has to make a difference in your life as pastors and in your parish communities. And that's what I hope to do over the next 3 hours that we have together, is to really talk about how that can happen, how you can take this concept of synodality that we've been talking about since 2021 and make it make a difference in your parish and in your personal ministry. So that's the task that I've set out for us. I've split this talk into 3 sessions. The first thing we're going to talk about this evening is communion. The Synod gives us these themes, so it's pretty easy to go with it. So we'll talk about communion. I really want to ground this in some decent theology to see where it's coming from. But I want to give you practices every single time, how you can make this applicable. And then tomorrow I want to talk about participation, which is really going to be about all this listening and what use is this listening, what difference can it make, why do we do it, and then some practical skills that you can use. And then the third thing is on mission, and mission is really going to be, why do we do any of this at all? What is this all for? What's the purpose of any of this? I hope this can be a real conversation. I planned some dialogues in it so that we can talk to each other, we can have conversation throughout, and I really want to hear what your thoughts are around this topic, because I really want to get to the point where we can say, what difference does this make? That we're not just talking about synodality, but that we can actually do synodality. It makes a difference for you as priests and for those that you serve. I notice that I'm not using the microphone at all. Is that a problem?
Question I've got, and I don't know, what about for the...
I think we need to use the mic.
Okay, I just forgot. I just started going and I forgot. I can use the mic though, then I don't have to yell. All right, very good. So a few things that I want to get us started with. Oh, the last thing Father Anthony had mentioned, and I'm not going to plug my book very often, but I'll do it right now. I did bring some copies of the book that I published. The reason I created a book is I was asked to talk about this topic in Houston, in the Archdiocese of Houston, and they asked me for these practices, and I put them together. It's so easy to publish on Amazon now. I put them all together into a book and brought that to Houston. So when we were talking as the Synod team, I said, oh, I have a book if you want to do handouts. So I brought that. I can give it away for $15 each. But a lot of the practices we'll be talking about are all in that. So if you want some handouts, that's really the primary handout. So that's there for you. All right, let's get started. The first thing I really want to start with is the logo itself. I think the logo for the Synod, even before I go here, let me go back and talk about this big logo. This logo that you might have seen all through the past 3 years, I think says it all. And I really want to unpack that as we unpack synodality. The first thing that you're going to notice is there's a lot of people walking together, and they're walking together with that big orange spirit, that sun above them. That's really, I think, at the heart of synodality. So when we talk about church leadership and synodality, I want to start with this idea of the synod that we've always started with, which is walking together. All right, that's step number one. Synod 101 is synodus, which literally means walking together. And this really has an implicit theology within it. The idea, if you notice, is that the bishop here, or the pastor, is actually walking in the midst of people. It's not the idea of leadership walking from the front or leading from the front and have everyone follow. This bishop here in this logo is in the middle. It's leadership from the midst. And this, I think, is really a cause for some reflection of what that means. What does it look like to lead from the midst of people? And how is that different than leading from the front or even leading from the back? We recognize through that Synod logo that the Holy Spirit is really the ultimate leader. The Holy Spirit is the one that's guiding people forward in this walk that we're taking together. We notice that as we're walking together, we're actually going somewhere. So there's a destination in mind. It begs the question, where are we going? And how do you figure that out when you're in the midst of people? So what really then is the role of the pastor in a synodal church? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What behaviors and patterns do you have when you're leading from the midst? How do you lead from the midst? And why would you ever want to? It's so much easier just to lead from the front. You've got your agenda. You know what you want to do. You just say, "Come on along. We're going to go for a walk." But leading from the midst is a little bit more difficult. One thought I have on this, I know it's a lot of words, but one thought I have on this comes from our new Pope, Pope Leo XIV. This is a few pictures of Pope Leo in his previous work. And this was sent to me by a friend of mine, Father Josh, who works at the Dicastery for Integral Human Development in Rome, and had worked with Cardinal Prevost. And I just wanted to share his thoughts, which I think is really the idea of a pastor leading from the midst. This is what he said. He did not emerge from behind gilded curtains, but from the muddy lanes of a flood-ravaged town in Peru. Long before he appeared on the Vatican balcony, Pope Leo XIV had already made his message clear, not with encyclicals, but with a pair of black boots and rolled-up sleeves. In Peru, he walked through rising waters, not as a visiting dignitary, but as one among the afflicted. He served food in a modest kitchen, not as an act of charity, but as a gesture of kinship. These images, serving rice, listening to grief, walking through ruins, have already etched a theology more potent than sermons, one of proximity, of presence, and of shared humanity. He does not arrive to restore power, but to restore nearness. There is something unmistakable in his posture, less a ruler than a companion, not one who visits the poor, but one who understands what it means to be poor in spirit and circumstance. His papacy will speak in the language of humble witness, not clerical command. This is not leadership from above, but alongside. At a time when the world teeters under the weight of nationalism, cruelty, and widening inequality, when brute strength is too often mistaken for vision, Leo XIV brings a different kind of authority, that of one who walks with, not over. He may not shout reform, but his life already whispers revolution, the kind rooted not in strategy, but solidarity. I thought it was worth it to read this all to you. I thought it was a very interesting reflection on our new pontiff. But if Father Josh is right, what we're witnessing is the demonstration of someone who is leading from the midst of people, with people, in a new kind of solidarity, really by the witness of his life, more by what he does than what he says. So as we continue to think about synodality,
I think we have to, I want to set the context a little bit within the church that we're working within. I don't know about you, but I've noticed that the church has become more polarized the longer I'm in the church. There seems to be these different poles that we're working in, and we may find ourselves in the middle, but we're also living within this reality. And I've done a lot of study recently on how to navigate these polarities. And we recognize that there's a left and a right, there's a liberal and a conservative, and sometimes those are battles that are happening, especially within the realm of synodality. Synodality has been tossed around within this polarity. So I want to talk a little bit about, I think, one of the central polarities that synodality struggles with. And I want to do that by telling you a story of two different priests. The first priest was a great mentor of mine. His name was Father Jerome McKenna. He was a Passionist priest. When I knew Jerome, he was my boss in Wheeling-Charleston. He was the Vicar General for the Diocese of Wheeling-Charleston under Bishop Bernard Schmidt. And Jerome passed away just a couple of years ago in his 90s. He was still a pastor. He worked to the day that he died. He was 91 years old. He was a pastor in North Carolina. He was an amazing man. And when I knew him, he was already quite elderly. He was in his late 70s at the time. So you imagine this kind of frail priest in his blacks. He was in the chancery doing his work, and he had this big button, like an oversized, huge button. And it said, "We've always done it that way." And there was a big line through it, like a non-smoking sign. So you'd see this priest come in who was, "Hi, I'm from the diocese, I'm here to help you." And he would walk in, and he'd have this big button, and he'd just sit there at meetings, and people wonder, what is this guy about? Because he's the VG. Jerome was a unique leader, and he would always ask the same question of everyone: how could we do this differently? Because he would talk often about the church being fossilized. It's one of his favorite words, that we were just stuck in stone. And he would say, is there any way that we could do this differently? And I believe that Jerome's favorite quote was this, from Revelations: "Behold, I make all things new." And that's what Jerome was really trying to do, is to break us out of our patterns and to shake things up as much as he possibly could. That's the story of one priest. On the other side of this polarity, we have Father Michael Carano. Father Michael Carano was a priest of Brooklyn, New York. He became a good friend, though at the time I was telling you this story happened, he was not my good friend. He was a priest of a parish of the Assumption in Brooklyn Heights. And I went in for a meeting with him because I was sort of frustrated. I had been in the diocese working as director of pastoral planning for a while, and it wasn't taking. There was a lot of priests that just weren't picking up this idea of pastoral planning. I didn't understand why. I was very naive. And so I went in and I sat down with Father Michael Carano one morning, and I said that to him. I said, "Father, I just don't understand. Why? This is really good. This is life-giving for the parishes. It's going to be great for pastors. They're going to have lay people they can work with. Collaboration really makes the priest job easier. Why don't they change?" And he said very dryly, "Robert, how long have you been with us?" And I said, "I don't know, like 5 years." He goes, 5 years, that's a long time, and you still haven't figured it out. And I said, "No, what?" He goes, "Robert, a Brooklyn pastor wakes up in the morning to make sure things don't change." And I was stunned. I didn't understand it. So that was Father Michael Carano. A pastor wakes up in the morning to make sure things don't change. If Michael Carano had a favorite Bible quote, it would be this: "Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. All I got to do is get up in the morning, I know exactly what to say." These are two very different priests. I think what they're demonstrating is this sort of polarity that can exist within the church between tradition and change. At the one hand, we're holding on tightly to our traditions to make sure things don't change, and that's our job, really, is to make sure that. We are the ground and foundation that's holding us back from the gates of hell. On the other side, we're also called, some people think, to change, to radical change, to disrupt things, because the patterns of the way that we do things are not effective, or they're not in line with the gospel even. So we need to change. We need to shake things up. That's our job. So in the midst of this, I think what we find ourselves in is a polarity. It's a polarity of either or. Is it tradition or is it change? Now, what I'd like to offer you is the idea that, that we can navigate this polarity and find a third way, find another way between these poles of either tradition or change. So I'd like you, if you could, help me out with this. This is sort of our first exercise. I'll give you a few minutes to talk to each other about this, and we'll come back together, and I want to hear what you have to say. Within each of these poles, this is tradition, this is change, there are benefits to each one. There's a benefit to holding on fast to tradition, and there's probably benefits to changing. And there could be different circumstances where one is called than the other. So what I'd ask you to do is take some time, talk to your partner, say hello if you don't know your neighbor, and just have a little conversation about what do you think are the benefits of each, and then also what do you think are the overuses. If we go too far with one pole or the other, it's dangerous, really. So what are the dangers, or what are the of overusing and being too hard on tradition, or overusing change and being too far on change? Does that make sense? All right, so just take maybe 5 minutes, just say hello to somebody, and just go through those questions. We'll be back.
I know you.